There's a certain kind of soul that carries a deep inner calling, one that resounds like a whisper from another world. They are drawn to truths that others refuse to see, to wisdom that feels like it comes from the very core of existence. But despite this strength, there's an aching loneliness that follows them. The deeper their connection to the divine or the unknown, the further they seem to drift from the world around them. The more they shine, the more others shy away. They are misunderstood, rejected not because they are wrong, but because their light forces others to face what they aren't ready to confront. This rejection isn't personal. It's the overwhelming intensity of their essence, a light so bright it casts shadows in the hearts of those who can't bear to look. They carry a wisdom that feels like a burden, a gift wrapped in sorrow. If you've ever felt this, you know the quiet ache of being too much and too little at the same time. But what if this rejection isn't a sign of failure? What if it is, instead, a sacred part of your soul's initiation? Let's journey into this truth together. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. It is not a simple journey, but one that often leads us into profound isolation. The more we step into our true selves, the more we stand apart from the crowd. This path is one of spiritual strength, but it is often misunderstood. Those who walk it are often rejected, not because they have failed, but because they are awakening to a deeper truth that others cannot see. They are mirrors reflecting the shadows of others, and most are too afraid to look. This is where the shadow comes in, the parts of the self that we hide from, the aspects of our being that are too painful to confront. When someone who is spiritually strong presents a truth that shines a light on these hidden parts, others may lash out in fear, rejecting the messenger instead of the message. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, Jung once said. It is not the spiritually strong person who is feared, it is the mirror they hold up to the world, forcing others to see what they are not yet ready to face. Rejection, then, is not failure, it is part of the initiation. The soul must be tested, and those who are rejected are often the ones who are chosen to walk the most difficult path of all. Let's explore the first painful truth of why spiritual strength so often leads to rejection. As we journey into the first painful truth, we see that spiritual strength often brings us to a place where we must confront truths others are not ready to face. The more spiritually awakened someone becomes, the more clearly they see through the illusions people build around themselves. These illusions are like fragile walls, protecting the self from the harshness of reality, from the truth of who they really are. The spiritually strong, however, have crossed into a space where these walls no longer hold up. They can see beyond the facades, through the masks people wear to avoid their own shadows. This makes them both a blessing and a burden. When a spiritually awake person speaks, they speak not just of their own truth, but also of the unspoken truths of the world, the deeper, often uncomfortable realities that others would rather not face. They become mirrors reflecting what others are unwilling to see in themselves. And mirrors, as we know, do not lie. Yet when others are faced with their reflection, they may not see clarity. They see discomfort, fear, and the stirring of parts of themselves they have long buried. This is where the rejection begins. It is not that the spiritually strong person is wrong, but that their truth is a reminder that others are not ready to confront. Just as a mirror does not judge, neither does the spiritually awakened person, but others will often react with anger or fear. They may turn away, lash out, or simply reject the messenger. Not because they dislike the person or their truth, but because the truth forces them to look at themselves, at their own wounds, fears, and suppressed parts. It is the fear of this self-confrontation that leads to rejection. The person who walks the path of spiritual strength shines a light in dark places, and that light can be blinding to those not yet ready to step into it. This emotional cost of being misunderstood is a reality many spiritually strong individuals face. The truth they speak is not a judgment. It's a call to wake up, to see things as they truly are. And often people reject what they are not yet ready to accept. This is the burden of spiritual truth, a truth that can free, but only when the soul is ready to accept it. Building upon the rejection born from the spiritual truths we carry, there is another painful truth that often follows: the intensity of spiritual strength. Spirituality is not just about wisdom, it is also an energy, a presence that vibrates with an intensity that can be difficult for others to bear. Like a flame burning brightly in the darkness, spiritually strong individuals often emit a radiant energy that is undeniable. This energy is magnetic, but it's also overwhelming. The more deeply one connects with their own spiritual truth, the more their very presence becomes an invitation for others to confront themselves, whether they're ready or not. The spiritually awakened person is like a fire in the night. They burn with a quiet, steady heat that lights the way for others, but not everyone is prepared to endure the warmth. Some find it too consuming. This intensity is not just about the wisdom they share, but about the very essence they exude. There's an undeniable force that can sometimes make others feel exposed, vulnerable, or even threatened. People who are not ready for such energy can feel as though they are being burned by the very light that is meant to guide them. Imagine someone who carries a deep, burning desire to help, to heal, or to share their truth. They extend their warmth to those around them, hoping to help them grow, but instead they find themselves alone. The more they give, the more others retreat, unable to handle the intensity of what they offer. It's not that the intention is harmful, but the energy can be too much. Jung's concept of the shadow comes into play here. When someone with intense spiritual strength radiates their truth, they force others to confront their own repressed or undeveloped aspects. They shine a light on the parts of themselves that they may not want to face, creating discomfort and ultimately fear. This fear is often what leads to rejection. The energy of the spiritually strong person triggers something deep within others, something that they may have buried for years. The emotionally unprepared will shy away, for facing one's own shadow is no easy task. This fear of being confronted by their own darkness often results in distance or even rejection of the person who embodies the very intensity they cannot yet handle. This intensity is a gift, but it is one that not everyone can embrace. As we reflect on the intensity of spiritual strength and the fear it evokes in others, we are led to another painful truth. Spiritual strength challenges the comfort of those around us. Growth, as we all know, is uncomfortable. It is a process that forces us to move beyond the boundaries of the familiar, to stretch into unknown territories where old beliefs and patterns no longer serve us. The spiritually strong person is an embodiment of that challenge. They awaken others to the possibility of growth, often pushing them out of their safe, comfortable spaces. This push, however, comes at a price: rejection. The spiritually strong are like kings and queens, each one called to step into their rightful power. But to do so requires rejecting the comfort of mediocrity, the quiet complacency that most people live in. It means saying no to the norms and expectations that bind people to a life of conformity, and yes to the path of authenticity, where soul's truth leads and societal approval follows a distant second. Just like a monarch who must rise to their throne, spiritually strong individuals must rise to their true self, even if it means standing alone. The more someone resists the call to rise, the more they will find themselves at odds with others, especially those who prefer the comfort of what they know. Imagine someone who refuses to accept the world's limitations, the societal expectations that demand they shrink, conform, or play small. This person, with their refusal to conform, can be met with rejection from family, friends, or even romantic partners. Those around them, who are still tethered to the comfort of conformity, may find their truth too unsettling, too disruptive. Here lies the tension between conformity and authenticity. One represents the comfort of the known, while the other invites the discomfort of growth. Spiritual strength, by its very nature, represents a rejection of the status quo. It asks others to question their own truths, to step outside of the boxes they have created for themselves. Jung's concept of the personal myth comes into play here, the story each of us is meant to live, often in defiance of societal norms. The spiritually strong person follows this personal myth, but in doing so, they are often rejected by the collective, who are not ready to follow the same path. As we delve deeper into the complexities of spiritual strength, we come to the final painful truth, the profound loneliness that often accompanies it. When you are spiritually strong, you walk a path that is uniquely your own, a path that, by its very nature, can feel isolating. It's not that you choose loneliness, but that the journey of awakening often sets you apart from those around you. Imagine standing in a vast, dense forest where the trees obscure the path ahead and the air feels heavy with silence. You feel both small and infinite, lost in the maze of your own thoughts, while the world around you seems to rush on, too caught up in its distractions to notice your quiet struggle. The spiritually strong person often finds themselves in this place of solitude, standing apart not by choice, but by necessity. They are called to walk a path of authenticity, a path that requires deep self-reflection and commitment. The more they answer this call, the further they seem to drift from others, unable to bridge the gap between their inner truth and the outside world. This distance is not just physical, it's emotional, a feeling of being out of sync with those who cannot understand the depth of your soul's longing. The tension between connection and isolation becomes palpable. While there is a yearning for companionship, for shared understanding, there is also the recognition that this journey requires solitary exploration. This solitude is not an absence of connection, but a necessary part of the process. Jung's concept of the self speaks to this. True selfhood is not a communal endeavor, but a solitary one. The journey to discover and embrace our authentic self often requires a temporary cutting off from the familiar world, from the noise and distractions that prevent us from entering the depths of our own being. It is in this solitude that we are asked to shed our old skins and emerge into a more meaningful existence. And though this journey may feel lonely at times, it is also the only path that leads to the fullness of our true self. As you sit with these painful truths, allow yourself to feel the tension between being misunderstood and the deep knowing within that calls you to something greater. This tension is not something to fight, but to integrate. It is part of your soul's work, your journey of growth and awakening. Ask yourself, what truth have I been hiding from the world because of fear of rejection? Or what part of me longs to burn brightly, but has been dimmed by the fear of being too much? These questions are not just reflections, they are invitations to step into your full power. Your spiritual strength is not a curse, it is a sacred gift, one that carries the light of the soul. It is the fire that burns away what no longer serves you and illuminates the path forward, even when it feels like no one else can see the way. But remember, you are not meant to walk this path alone forever. There are those who can see you, who can meet you on the same frequency. The soul tribe who will recognize the essence of who you are. Seek them out, for they are the ones who will walk with you, even in the solitude, and remind you that you are not alone. As you reflect on this, know that the journey, though lonely at times, is part of the deeper purpose of your soul's unfolding. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This is your privilege, your calling, and your deepest truth. The rejection you face is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you are on the right path, one that demands courage, authenticity, and resilience. You are not being rejected, but chosen by the universe to walk a path few will ever understand. This is your sacred journey, and though it may be misunderstood by many, it is yours alone to walk. You are not alone in this, for those who are meant to walk with you will find you in time. Remember, you are the light that will guide others to their own truth. This is Echoes of Psyche, where the soul's deepest wisdom is honored and the journey towards self-realization is embraced. Step into your full strength. The world needs your light.